Albania's political crisis has deepened after the country's president declared October elections, contradicting Prime Minister Edi Rama's insistence that local elections would go ahead this Sunday. The country has been rocked by protests in recent months. Albania had been scheduled to begin accession talks with the EU this month, but Europe slammed on the brakes. Erion Velaj is the mayor of Tirana and close ally of the Prime Minister. He joins us now. Morning to you. Just explain, why is the Prime Minister so insistent on these elections going ahead?
Well, I don't think it's up to the hands of the Prime Minister at the moment. It is a decision by the Constitution to hold elections every 4 years. This is a democratic country. We cannot change the rules. Democracy is a participatory sport. So if the Constitution says we have to hold elections every 4 years, if the electoral court for elections says we need to have elections for 4 years, no president or other institution has the authority to say we should do them every 5, 7 or 9 years. I think the European Union and the United States yesterday spoke very clearly that they support democracy in Albania. June 30 is the election date and we need to have elections. I, as a mayor, cannot stand in office for more than 4 years, and in no democracy can you ignore the rules of the game. So there's a mandate. It expires on June 30. We have to go for reconfirmation. Other political parties, so 44 political parties are participating. Only a handful are not. And I think their primary concern is the justice reform that the United States and the European Union are sponsoring in Albania, which is getting away with corrupt judges, changing the way the justice system works. It cannot be anymore an auction of who pays more. It should be a competition on who has right and who is just. And I think justice reform and the fact that a few corrupt opposition leaders have been removed their visas from the United States and other traveling restrictions, which have really caused this stir.
Are you concerned that this instability might have an impact on attempts to join the EU?
I think it would have more of an impact if we get away with elections. If we decide that the rule of law is something that we can toy around depending on political appetites. I think our decision to respect the Constitution, to respect the court, to respect the public, which we owe an explanation, which we owe a competition in an election date, I think is the best way to respect our European ambitions. We come from a time where this country didn't have elections. We come from a time where Albania and Tirana, this capital, used to be the North Korea, used to be the Pyongyang of Europe. So I think we left that past for a future where we compete every 4 years. If the president, who's also the husband of one of the opposition leaders, decides that a part of his family is not ready to partake in elections, they're doing horrible in the polls, they're opposing this justice reform sponsored by the EU and the US, then they can join when they are ready. But we cannot tell the public to go home until politicians are ready. Elections are a time where people elect politicians, not where politicians elect their own people. And therefore, I think we should respect the date. And as the court and our best allies have
talking about the politicians,
June 30 will be an election day.
Talking about the politicians, what needs to happen to get the opposition kind of geared up and into force and sort of re-engaged in the political process?
There has been 7 attempts by the Prime Minister sending open letters to invite the leader of the opposition to sit at the table. I know they are upset with this justice reform. And, rightly so. They appointed judges in these last 30 years who cannot explain why a Maserati, why a Bugatti, why a Lamborghini appears in front of their house for judges who make less than €1,000 salary. I know this must hurt, but you know what? It has to change. We cannot hold this country hostage to corrupt judges or to politicians who've been toying with legislation, toying with the Constitution, toying with the courts for the last 30 years. I used to live abroad. I came to this country to raise my son. I came to this country as an activist, as a protester myself. I run a progressive city. We are gearing up to become Europe's youth capital in 2022. And therefore, I believe that we need to think of the future, not to cut another bargain with the politicians of the past. If some people are losing their benefits, if some people are facing transparency, if young judges are putting people in front of court, and it doesn't matter whether they're ministers or MPs or they have a big name in politics, I think it speaks volumes that we're going through painful transition. Some people are hurting, but I think the majority of the public wants to move away from the Russia influence.
That painful transition is something that we're going to be following here. Sorry, just for time, we're going to have to leave it there, but appreciate it. Erion Velaj, Mayor of Tirana, thank you.